2 weeks after his arrest in Russia, U.S. journalist Evan Gershkovich still has not been granted consular access.
I think Russia not following through on meeting its obligations to consular access, never mind the practice of detaining people arbitrarily for political purposes, is going to do even more damage to Russia's standing around the world.
Russian authorities charged the Wall Street Journal correspondent with espionage, charges the paper's editor-in-chief has called rubbish. The U.S. State Department has since declared the journalist as wrongfully detained. His arrest marks the first case of an American journalist arrested by Moscow on allegations of spying since the Cold War. Bojan Pancevski is the Germany correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. Bojan, your colleague Evan is being detained in Moscow's notorious Lefortovo jail, which dates back to the Stalin purges. What do we know about his condition right now?
Yes, well, he has received visits from our lawyer, the lawyer we retained in Moscow to represent him, which is a good thing. We know from the lawyer that he's been treated well. He's not been abused in any way. He lives in a solitary confinement, which is not great, but it is what it is. He's in a sort of a good mental and physical state. He's been cracking jokes. That's in his character. That's his nature. So that sounds like him very much. He's been allowed access to the library apparently, and he's been given a book to read. Bizarrely, it's the book of Soviet dissident Life and Fate, which talks about the horrors of Stalinism and people being imprisoned in that very jail where he's sitting now. So that's a bit of an irony of fate. But what we know so far is that he's doing fine. Of course, it's only been 2 weeks now, and we don't know what happens next. But for the time being, we're confident that he's okay.
Okay, so under the circumstances, that's I guess as good news as you could hope for, given what's happening. You say lawyers have been able to see Evan Gershkovich, but U.S. consular officials have not, though the Russian Foreign Ministry says that is being considered. How crucial is that having consular access to him right now?
Well, first of all, it's his legal right. It is part of international norms that govern these relationships, and he should have had the ability to receive consular visit. That was not extended to him. That was not granted to him. The State Department of the United States is saying that this is a violation of international norms. They have protested pretty vocally, and the Russians are saying they won't be pushed. However, we'll see what happens. We hope that they will enable consular access. This is very important to start working on his case. He's been declared as practically as a hostage. So he's treated as a hostage in the American system, which means that certain amount of resources can be dedicated to his case. There is a negotiator within the government, within the State Department, who's now handling his case. And we're hoping that these negotiations will commence soon, because it's very important to get him out. And it's not clear what the Russians want, because there is a strong suspicion that that this is not a normal case of imprisonment, but that they are sort of keeping him there for a reason.
Right, and he's been accused of espionage, which of course your paper and your government denies. I just wonder why you think him and why now?
Look, I can only speculate. We don't know. What we do know is that it's absolutely laughable to think that there's anything sort of accurate in these accusations. Obviously, Ivan is a reputable journalist. He's been living there for well over 5 years. He's always been accredited. They've always followed his sort of every move. They knew who he was, where he went, who he talked to. There is absolutely nothing in these accusations. He's been doing his job. He's been doing his job very well at that, not only for the Wall Street Journal, but also for other reputable outlets. So it's anyone's guess what they want. Obviously in the past, they've been trying to treat people like currency and trade them for their own prisoners. There are Russian actual spies and even murderers who are sitting in prisons across the world. But it's anyone's guess what they want. I mean, the Russian government is saying this is a normal case. He's been charged with espionage, and we'll have to take it from there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and we've had some experience with this in recent years here in Canada with Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, who were arbitrarily detained by the Chinese government. President Biden weighed in on that, making the statement that human beings are not bargaining chips. But that seems to be what's happening here, right? Because we've seen the case with Brittany Griner. Paul Whelan is an ongoing detention there. You mentioned that this has been declared essentially a hostage-taking by the U.S. government. What sort of powers and resources does that bring to the table that wouldn't have been there before?
Well, before that, it would have been the case would have been treated as any kind of imprisonment, and there would be some sort of a limited consular assistance, which is obviously vital to people abroad. But in this particular case, there's a whole machinery that gets activated when the legal status is achieved, and so there is a special envoy to the president who negotiates cases like that, and this person will now be in charge. There are other people who will be involved. There are resources that will be deployed. There will be a possibility to actually negotiate with the government of Russia should they actually want something in return for allowing even to walk free, because obviously whatever process is put in place here in terms of judiciary or the courts, that's always going to be a charade, because he's obviously not guilty, and it's a baseless accusation. There's no legal to keep him in prison.
A lot of people may not have heard of Evan Gershkovich until this happened, right? They may have seen his byline, but you don't know the person very well simply based on that. You know their reporting, you know their work. What do you want people to know about your colleague, Evan?
Well, he's a wonderful guy. He's a fantastic journalist. He's very hardworking. He's very honest. He's very diligent. I met him here in Berlin. He used to come here on his way back from Russia and Ukraine. He's a very fun guy. He's 31 years old, a young dude. He was delighted to be able to work in Russia because he's of, his parents are Soviet emigres who moved to America. So he himself was born in New Jersey, I think. Grew up, he's kind of a born and bred American boy, but he has these kind of Russian roots. He speaks the language at a native level proficiency, and he loves the culture of Russia, the people of Russia. He's very interested in the country. So for him, I think covering the country was a passion, not only a duty, and he really did it gladly. So he did everything, in humanly possible to be accurately and sort of methodically reporting about the realities in Russia, which I think it's a great asset nowadays in this time of war and tensions. So, he's a great young person who has been put behind bars for no reason but doing his job really well.
Bojan Pancevski, I want to thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your interest. It's great that you had me on. Thank you.